Hi, I'm Phil Kenyon. We're here at the Scotty Cameron barn, and in this video we're going to talk about torque. Now it seems a hot topic at the moment. We're hearing this all the time, torque profile, zero torque. But what does torque mean? Well, quite simply, within the context of moving a putter, it's the potential for that club to twist when we move it. So we're going to take a deep dive today to help you appreciate and understand more about torque and what you might consider when selecting your next putter. Now, first of all, we're going to look at some common categories of putters and then talk about the torque profiles that exist within those putters. So I've got in my hand here a face balance putter. Now, we know it's face balance because the typical test is we'll hold this shaft horizontal, and what we can see when we hold the shaft horizontally, that the club face stays square. Now the reason it does is that the axis of the shaft is aligned to the CG of the putter when I hold it in this plane. I'm actually, if I move my hand here, this putter would fall to the ground. So I'm actually applying a force here, but the axis of that is in line with the CG, so that this club doesn't twist, it stays square. If I got a toe hang putter and I did the same thing, what we can see is when I let go, this club will twist. And the reason it twists is that the axis of this shaft now is inside where the CG is. So the line of force is outside of the CG, and as a consequence, that club would want to twist. Now, more recently, the term lie angle balanced has become more popular, more common. What does lie angle balance mean? Well, this is a lie angle balance club. If I place this club in a horizontal plane, what you will see is the club will twist. So the club face now sits vertically, and that's because the CG is slightly inside of the shaft. So the CG is trying to align with the direction of the force, which is this way. So now we have a club which is effectively lie angle balanced. The club face wants to sit vertically here. So if I was to put that closer to sort of lie angle, you can see how the face sits square. So that's lie angle balance. So we've got these different categories of putters. Now, what you already appreciate is that we don't actually hit a putt in this horizontal axis. We hit a putt in shaft angle. And so I'm going to demonstrate now what happens when we put the club in shaft angle and we move it, because it's going to more visibly demonstrate the different torque profiles of the club, what happens when we move the club potentially. So we're going to start with the face balance putter. So if I was to just hang this club vertically, it's not quite in lie angle, I hang this club vertically, and we imagine making a putting stroke from here. We apply a force away from the target to start with, and as we do that, what we can see is the club face stays fairly square, because the line of force, because of this axis of the shaft, it's in line with the CG. So we accelerate away. In the takeaway, what will happen as we approach the top of the backswing is we start to apply a force in this direction. And then on the downswing, we're still applying a force to the target. So if I apply a force towards the target, we can see again the club face stays fairly square. The line of force is in line with the CG. So when we're swinging in plane with a face balance putter, that in-plane force would not create any torque about the shaft. There'd be no twist in the club face. However, we hold the club in lie angle. So what happens when I put this club in lie angle? Now when I apply a force out of plane, holding the club in lie angle, you can see that club now wants to twist. There's some torque here. And that's now because the line of force through the shaft is actually not in line with the CG. The CG of this club in the head would be roughly about here. So as I apply a force out of line with the CG, there's some element of twist. So this club will have a particular torque profile. There's some potential for this club to twist when we hold it in lie angle. Now let's look at another club. We're going to go toe hang. Now, first of all, I'm going to look at what happens when we put this club in lie angle. So when I put this club in lie angle, we can also see that it twists. It twists at a slightly different rate. When I put the club up, it's not as quick, but once it gets out of line, it really then accelerates. Again, the shaft where it's aligned is outside of the CG, so we've got some torque when we put this club into lie angle. Now, when we apply an in-plane force, what happens? Okay, so as I apply a force back, we can see the toe lags behind the heel. If this was a putting stroke, when we get to the top of the backswing, we're already starting to apply a force towards the target. What happens when I apply a force towards the target? We can see the toe will lag behind the heel. And ultimately, it's because this line of force is outside of the CG. So with a putter that's got toe hang, you've got some potential to for some torque when we apply an in-plane force, potential for the club to twist, and also we've got potential for the club to twist when we apply an out-of-plane force, when we hold it in lie angle. So different profiles. Now, ultimately, we hold the club, the golfer holds the club. So let's look at what happens when I get this toe hang putter and I put it in shaft plane. So when I hold that club in shaft plane, we notice that it doesn't twist. So I'm applying an about the shaft torque, just literally by holding the club, which can manage some of that potential to twist open. Obviously, when I apply an in-plane force, there's that potential to twist. But again, the golfer, when they hold a club, I can make that club move in whatever manner that I want to. So it's an interaction fundamentally between the golfer and the club. We're only talking here about the potential to twist. Now, let's look at lie angle balance then. What happens here in shaft plane? So, when we hold the club vertically, let's look at that first. So we hold the club vertically. The shaft is pretty much in line with the CG. The CG, if anything, is on the inside of the shaft, slightly close to the heel. So we have a very small torque profile in this Scotty Cameron OC, which is, like I say, it's a lie angle balance putter. So when I apply an in-plane force, you can actually see very, very slightly when I apply the in-plane force, the toe wants to move first. Okay, it's the opposite of the toe hang putter. However, because the torque profile is so small, it's a very, very small amount. So fundamentally, this is staying fairly square. There's a slight bit of rotation depending on, the direction of force here. But this is the opposite of a toe hang. If anything, this putter wants to open up slightly as it goes back, and then as I apply a force towards a target, if anything, the toe would want to catch up. Now, when I apply a force out of plane, so I'm changing the lie angle, because the CG is directly under the shaft, this putter will not twist open. So out of plane force, there's no torque created. So this is why this category would be called lie angle balance. When you put it in lie angle, then the club face is staying fairly square. However, there's still potential for it to twist when you apply an in-plane force. Now, there's a lot of different putters that kind of fit into that category in the market, and very often they're talked about as having zero torque, and that's not always the case. I think that the term zero torque and lie angle balance, it's used interchangeably and they're very different. If you had a true zero torque putter, then when you place that club horizontally, wherever you placed it, it would hold that angle. So if I placed it here, it would stay there. But what you can see is that the CG is seeking to line up here to that direction of force. True zero torque, if I placed it this way, it would stay there. It wouldn't try and realign itself. So a true zero torque putter, wherever you placed it horizontally, it would stay there because the CG is aligned with the direction of force, so it doesn't want to move. So, well, what does this all mean? Well, ultimately you have different torque profiles. You have each club could potentially move differently. These torques are very, very small. They're not massive, and I just demonstrated the fact that if I got this putter and put it into shaft plane, it doesn't move because of the torque that I apply to the golf club. Torque also is not a dirty word. I think a lot of people think, oh no, torque's a bad thing. Well, ultimately, when we move, that potential to twist can offer the golfer some feedback. It can help with the proprioception and awareness of where that club is in time and space. And a lot of golfers need torque in order to be able to coordinate and control the face. It can help for many golfers in terms of face awareness. Sometimes when you take that torque away, you can lose face awareness. For some golfers, taking that torque away might feel better, but they actually lose awareness of where the face is, and as a consequence, it can have a negative effect on performance. So from my perspective in terms of putter fitting, it's about matching the torque profile of the putter to the player's movement pattern. A player will move in a particular manner. They'll have a torque profile per se. It's about matching then the profile of the putter to the profile of the player. And ultimately, it comes down to which putter helps you control your start line. Not just in terms of how that putter feels, but actually which putter helps you hit your line more often. Now, if you look simply at the physics of the club, you could argue a putter with toe hang has the potential for the toe to be delayed. You could argue that when you go more towards lie angle balance, the physics of the club could help the toe release. So quite simply, if you're a golfer that typically pushes the ball and you're using toe hang, then in terms of my fitting philosophy, maybe look at more like a face balance putter or a lie angle balance putter. And then the opposite might apply if you were a golfer that had a pull bias and you were using lie angle balance or face balance, then try a putter with toe hang. But we never really know how a player reacts to a club until you actually use that club. And very often you may need to flip that process. And in doing so, you can actually gain better face control. So putter fitting for me is very much trial and error. You've got to test the different putters, see how they react, but the ultimate test is which torque profile helps you hit your start line more often. The more efficient you can be with your start line, the more putts you're going to hole.